Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Hobby Hammer podcast with myself, Ben Mudge, and Lloyd Davis, the most important guy. How are you doing, Lloyd?
I'm doing very well, Ben. How are you today?
I'm really good, actually. There's blue skies outside, which is making me happy. And typically, as any hobbyist, I'm inside, so it's nice to look out. It's like an
I,
aquarium.
I am also inside at a different location, but it is absolutely glorious sunshine here in the UK. So I think it's after this we might have to go make the most of it because it's never guaranteed, is it?
No, we get about what 2 weeks of this. One of my friends actually says like, "Oh, the sun actually exists in the UK." I was like, "Well, yeah,
Now and again.
sometimes." He says, I'm amazed you're not all out, but like throwing a bunch of rocks and sticks at it if you're from Northern Ireland, because what is that giant thing in the sky there?" Okay, so let's discuss a little bit about the podcast, why we're making it, what gives us the right to make a podcast. We don't have the right. We're just doing it because we like talking about Warhammer quite a lot.
We're
But
doing it because we can,
we
and because we're
literally,
men of a certain age where a podcast is essential to our identity.
that's true. We're taking off all the boxes there. So in this episode, this is going to be obviously this is our first episode. The structure is going to be somewhat ad hoc. We've got some structure there, so don't we're professionals, kind of. But in this episode, we're just going to go through the kind of rough structure that these podcasts are going to cover. So if you are into Warhammer, if you're into the hobby in general, then you're in the right place. And with that being said, Lloyd, you were at Adepticon last week.
I was at Adepticon last week. I was there helping out the Artis Opus guys. And if you don't know, Artis Opus brand brushes, and they very generously sponsor my other channel, which you may have heard of, called The Painting Coach, where I predominantly do painting tutorials for all types of Warhammer. So I'm sure we'll put the link in the description for that. So if you wanted to check out the channel later on, you absolutely can. But yes, I think this episode is our first episode. It's going to be an episode of firsts. So I'm going to talk about not so much about Adepticon, but my first Golden Demon award ceremony. Well, I've entered Golden Demon in the past, and I've had a couple of finalist pins. I've never actually hung around for the award ceremony, so it was nice to go to that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So Ben, what's your first that you're going to talk a little bit about?
I've got a few. I've got a few. I suppose I could talk about my first tournament that I entered a couple of weeks ago. I'm obviously going to be making a video on that for my channel. Again, plug to both of our channels. Check out Lloyd's The Painting Coach. I have, and I'm sure many of you are listening have already checked them out, but please go and do so again. Make sure you leave any comments if you come from this
What's your
podcast.
channel called, Ben?
Oh, it's more Warhammer. It's more Warhammer.
How much Warhammer?
More of it. It's a
More of it.
as well. More. There we go. More war. So yeah, I entered a competition a couple of weeks ago, and I suppose I could chat about that. But let's dig into Adepticon. So your first Golden Demon, you've done. You say you've entered a few.
Yeah, so I've entered two Golden Demons. I entered the first one back at Warhammer World after COVID,
Mhm.
and I got a finalist pin. I entered in Warhammer Fest in Manchester, and I also got a finalist pin. Now, I didn't enter this time because I wasn't certain that I'd actually be going to the States until about 3 months beforehand. And I could have entered, but I kind of made the very adult decision not to put myself through that stress. Having known what I put myself through before, I just didn't need that in my life at that time. So, I mean, I might make a start on next year's entry now, just in case I go next year. But we'll see. But that's not a commitment before anybody tries to hold me to anything. But no, it was good. So I didn't see too much of Adepticon, but I did get to go to the Golden Demon award ceremony, which I have to say was absolutely fantastic. I went with Ross from Fohammer. I'm sure you all know Fohammer, and we had a great time watching the awards. And I think the thing that struck me the most about the ceremony, and it's something you don't necessarily get if you just read the text on Warhammer Community, is just the absolute energy in the room and the passion in the room and how happy everyone is for everybody. It was absolutely bonkers. It was really good, really inspiring. Um, I'm not going to say I called the Slayer Sword, but I did have an inkling who might win the Slayer Sword. I think all along I thought Tebow Ram, who's Orc mech boss, was absolutely fantastic. Got to see that in person as well. It is so good. I thought he might have a chance with it. Andy Wardle as well with his Cities of Sigmar General, or Marshall, sorry,
We get it.
phenomenal piece. Storytelling in that is absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's beautifully painted as well. But the night before the results were announced, I saw it's Iridan the Witness, isn't it? And I saw it popped up on Instagram the night before. And I thought, ooh, that might have a bit of a chance. And I called on the last Slayer Sword, which Dave Perryman won.
Mhm.
For I think it was Trog, maybe I think it was, but I called that. I thought that might get the Slayer Sword, and I did think that Iridan would trouble the judges, and it did, and it was a very worthy winner.
It is.
But what was great about that was just seeing the absolute surprise on Borgia's face when he won it. It was just fantastic. It was an amazing moment.
Oh,
It was a really good community of painters. So there's a really one thing to take away from that. A, as a predominantly a painter, I know we're going to talk about gaming and all that kind of stuff on the podcast, but really, for me, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to contribute there, but certainly from a painting point of view, just seeing some of these pieces in the flesh and seeing how phenomenal they are was really amazing and all inspiring. And also kind of gets you to gauge where you are and how far you need to get to come kind of go to the next level. So that was one of the main things I took from it. But it was very enjoyable, and then just kind of sitting around with all the winners after, just chatting about what they'd done, how they'd done it, holding the models was a really good experience. So I'm looking forward to. I'm probably not going to make a spiel in I think it's October, but definitely hope to go back to Adepticon next year. So that is my first for the podcast. So Ben, tell us a little bit about your first tournament. What game system was it? What army did you use, and how did you do?
okay. So let me unpack this a little bit. So I was sitting on the sofa a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday night, and I was added into a Discord of the kind of local Northern Irish AOS, so Age of Sigmar groups. Actually, the guy who works in the shop invited me into it in Warhammer in Belfast. And I saw that there was a tournament. It was just a one dayer. They call it one day. You got 1 day and 2 day events. 1 day typically a lot more laid back. You usually play about 3 games, whereas the 2 dayers, I believe you play five. You play three on the first day and then two on the next. And I think if you win, there's a potential third game on the second day as well. But I decided to go in just for the 1 dayer simply because I've not played that much, and it turns out Northern Irish scene is extremely competitive. So on a whim, I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna go for this. Now, whenever I'm painting, which is quite a lot, whenever I'm doing any box to boards or just in my spare time, I'll listen to a lot of Rob, the Honest Wargamer, and he discusses a lot about the meta and like the current game system. And just listening to that got me excited. And he kept talking about tournaments, the fact that he runs his own. And I think, like a lot of people, my expectations of tournaments were artificially created in my head just from my assumptions of it's going to be terrifying. People there are going to be super brutal. It's just not going to be a fun experience because I'm going in at such a low level of experience against people who are, they've been playing for decades. But I thought, you know what, that's just a figment of my imagination. I'm not going to know until I actually have been and tried one of these myself. So I registered. And I then had to get writing my list, which I decided I've somehow become a Skaven player. Would not, I mean, if you put
They're
all,
the Rat Boys.
yeah, the release of that Skaven Tide box, I had zero interest in Skaven. Like, I would look at them and go, fine, like a lot of armies. But the Skaven Tide release, I just think you got so many cool looking models in that range. And then obviously you've got some older models that exist in that range that once you kind of start to appreciate the aesthetic, the rest of them are like, oh, actually, on second thoughts, that's actually a pretty sick looking model. So I
Yeah.
put together my list of Skaven. And as I said in the video that I'm going to do about this, I'll show you the entire list and why I made the decisions I made. But ultimately, the decisions I made were based off what models I had ready and what models I actually had. So it probably wasn't the best list from a competition standpoint. But again, I was there to have fun. I just wanted to go and try it. So a lot of mad painting went on before the event. I managed to get Thankwall on Bone Ripper painted up. I managed to get and I'll pop up the images here. I managed to get a Warp Seer, which is one of the Vermin Lords.
Hmm.
Got one of those painted up. And I think I got some other ones as well. I basically painted everything. So I arrived at the event on that on the Sunday, I believe it was, and I was setting out with my models, and I was like, oh, cool, stressed out getting them all painted, and looked across the board. First guy was playing, none of his models were painted, and I was like, all right, cool. So, all right then. That was
What
just
happened to three color minimum? They had standards back in my day.
well, see, that's what I thought. And usually, again, just to kind of to go back on that point, if you're completely new to this, typically the rules are for games you have at least three colors on your miniature. That makes them battle ready, I believe. That's like the Warhammer
Mm.
standard. If you're going to play in Warhammer World, I think that's the minimum they would ask. I went into this thinking the same thing, but this event was very relaxed, which again, looking back on it now, I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense because most people struggle is to get their models painted, which then
Mm.
stops them from wanting to do tournaments, which is another barrier. So the guy who runs it, Pete, was just like, I just want people to get down and start rolling dice. That's all that matters to me. So that was my first shock. I was like, oh, cool. So, just spend all that time getting my models ready. At least I think they look cool.
Mm.
And I was chatting to the guy before we started setting up, and I was like, "So how many games have you played?" And he was just like, "Oh, I've been playing since." And this is when you panic. He went since 20, and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna say a year. It's not even gonna be like a couple of games. It's like I've been playing since like 20." And I was like, "Oh no, how far is he gonna go back?" He went back really far. He went by like 2010, and I was just like, "All right, cool. So how many games you played?" And he's like, "Oh, hundreds. What about you?" And I was like, "Just." Wait, this is my first one.
Just the one.
So, go easy on me. He didn't. He did not go easy
No.
on me. No, he
Ah.
had Iron Jaws. The first army was Iron Jaws, and he had 40 Ard boys.
Mm.
Just a wall. Literally just a wall of just orcs. Um, that game didn't go well. I had fun though, which again was the most important aspect. I think by turn three, the game was already concluded. He scored all his points.
Mm.
I scored some 20 something points. Um, but it's amazing how much you panic in that scenario. Like I had everything in my head. I was like, right, cool. I know all my sheets. I know all this. I know all this. And yet I just was doing stuff out of pure fear. I just moved one of my models, and I went, I don't know why I did that. I just made that move for no reason.
It's very out of character for you.
Oh, dude, it was so straight. It was just adrenaline. I was just like pure. I was like, I'm just gonna move my Grey Saber over here. I'm like, why? Why did I do that? That has screwed me over. But anyway,
Mm.
played that first game, got my ass kicked. Second game, I went and played a guy called Emmett. Really good dude. He was actually playing Soulblight, and just very, very good guy. Like had a lot of fun playing him. Again, that was another loss for me. I think it was 48-50 though, so a much closer game.
Mhm.
I played a much better game because I was more settled. Um, and just yeah, I can't speak highly enough about that game. It was just a lot of fun. Third game, then I went against the guy. And at this point, you've been there for over 7 hours. You've been playing for six of those. You're pretty tired. Obviously playing Skaven. I have a lot of models too, so a lot of models moving around. And that's one thing I would say next time I go to do this. I would reduce the amount of models I have in my list to make it easier for me. But yeah, just the monotony of moving models back and forth. I was getting pretty tired. The room was also quite loud, and the guy I was playing against was quite softly spoken. So I was struggling to like hear what he was doing. And a big part of, I think, for me, my first experience was okay, I want to learn what these guys are doing. I want to learn what their abilities do so I can then at least put together a rough plan of okay, I can use
Mhm.
this to counter that. But because I couldn't hear him that clearly, and he was playing an army I'm not used to, the Flesh Eater Courts, beautiful looking army as well, with big Usharan in the middle. But again, he trounced me. I was like, "Oh, so how often do you play?" Just some casual chat in between setting up. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, this is gonna be my list for Worlds." Cool. All right then. And he's like, "Yeah, I've only played this list like 7 times." I was like, "Okay, so you're literally 3 times the amount of experience that I have, and this is just an army you're just playing around with for Worlds." I was like, "All right, cool." So yeah, it turns out Northern Irish collection of players very competitive, which again, if you're in Northern Ireland and you're listening to this and you're worried about that, that's actually a good thing because then you've got someone who knows what they're talking about. There's not two inexperienced players like I was that first day
Mm.
just trying to make stuff up. It was very much like, can I do this? Because I was able to ask them, is this something I can do? Or if I do this, this is the intention I have. And I think it did it did work out quite well in my favor. But yeah, 0-3, just a standard Lions season
But
until a couple of years ago.
but you had the, I suppose, the courage to go and try it. And I suppose what you said at the start there about, what you make up in your head about what tournaments are like is probably very similar to what I perhaps think tournaments might be like. And a lot of people watching this might think the same as well. So I mean, what was the reality like in terms of what you'd made up versus what actually happened?
Very, very different. Like in my head, as I said, it's this quite intimidating, out of your depth feel. I think that's the feeling a lot of people go into it with. But my experience was a bunch of really cool people who share a passion that I also share. So you're immediately going into a room of people that you're like, I have something in common with these people. I think the banter as well, a good banter, just being able to chat. And you don't want to be chatting all the time, but the fact that you've got so many low-hanging fruit conversation starters, like why do you run this army? What made you pick this? What do you do for that paint job? Or what do you think of this new? And again, because we're in this community, it's so easy to have those conversations that makes it so different, and then therefore strips away that intimidation factor that I think a lot of people have. But again, shout out to Peter for organizing the event because he did such a good job. It was good fun. I'm definitely going to be going back with a completely different list and a different approach and a couple of things that
And you're now a power gamer.
oh, 18 stone fiends. That's it. Just smooth brain it. Just not even think. Just like, there you
That
go.
no longer exists. It's no longer
Yeah.
about cavalry, it's about winning.
Just move forward and crush. But no, the experience itself was again fantastic. And in the video, I'm working on that very soon. So hopefully it'll be out, yeah, fairly soon to this video or this podcast. But I just want to talk about a couple of things that I would suggest people to do if they're going to go into tournaments, some of the mistakes I made. Um, but yeah, it was a cool event. So going back to Adepticon, did you? I don't know about you, but like when you're around those people who are that, and I mean, again, you're very, very good at painting, but I would be curious to know whether someone who's as experienced at painting as you are, do you get that like boost of motivation to get back and paint?
Yeah, in a way. And I'm saying that knowing full well that I've barely painted since I've come home, but that's kind of a combination between jet lag, having to get back into actual work, to my actual day job, and that kind of stuff. And it's been nice, so you're trying to make the most of the weather.
Mhm.
Um, yes, it does. And I think perhaps where I struggle a little bit with painting wise is I don't. So I paint. So I do a weekly tutorial for the video for the channel. So it's always about getting that weekly tutorial done and getting out there. Very seldom can I sit there and just paint and practice,
Mhm.
deliberate practice for myself. So I think so. One of the big takeaways was making time to do that and pick a project. So I've always got that one project that I always can dip into and dip out of. So that's probably something I'm gonna look at doing. I think, and it's interesting you said I'm a very good painter because a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a very good painter," and that's great. But for me, I'm maybe like a 6 out of 10, 5.5 maybe on a good day when I compare myself to other people. No, no,
Yeah,
genuinely,
yeah.
because I,
No,
I
well,
think
that's yeah.
that
You're
that's how I see. It's great that I'm not a 3 out of 10,
mhm.
but it's also when I compare when I compare that to what competition level is like is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Um, like Nicholas Mortensen, who won gold in Age of Sigmar with the Nurgle. Is it Festus? I'm not sure.
Oh, is the one
But
he's
just
like the full
seeing
thickness
that,
one?
yeah, seeing that in the flesh, it glowed. It was,
Wow.
it was just almost bioluminescent the way they painted it and stuff and the color combinations and that. It was just like really, really insane, really, really good. Um,
I'm just looking at it here.
yeah, so it's just absolutely bonkers how good that is in the flesh.
Oh wow.
And the same goes for a lot of them. But do you know what? Very similar to you. I think what you found at the tournament is just people are more than willing to talk and share and tell you about how they did things
Yeah.
and how they painted it. And for me, I'm a very visual learner. That's just why I love watching YouTube videos and things like that. But
Mhm.
I've got to watch it and then go and try it. But actually seeing someone who's that good paint in the flesh, in the person, just like sat at the stand, just doing some normal things, and yeah, just that was really beneficial for me. because you're talking about things like paint consistency. You talk about how you apply them with the brush,
Yeah.
which is again levels above what I probably do on my channel, which is look, this is what it looks like in the box. This is how you get it looking like what's on the box without spending however many hours you might do it. So yeah, so I think that was probably one of the takeaways. And I think I was having a conversation with somebody last night who's entering in Spiel. And if they're watching this, they'll know who they are. And I was saying like I'm not going to put myself through that stress. I'm going to give myself a very wide run in to get something done if I do it in the future because it for me it is very stressful doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's something you can rush to do your best work. So we'll see. But it yeah, kind of did inspire me to kind of paint more. And we're going to talk a little bit about the news shortly.
Mhm.
And there's certainly some things coming which are very inspirational in terms of what I want to paint. So uh, I've artificially generated a bit of a segue there into
I
the
was going to
next
say that. I
section,
mean, that was the perfect segue. So
which is the news.
let's
It's
go into
almost
the
as though I've spoken before. So
yeah.
let's move on to the next section, which is going to be kind of the news, the Warhammer news. And
Mhm.
again, as Ben said right at the start, we are hobbyists, we're passionate hobbyists, we're not experts, so we don't know everything. Um, so feel free to let us know in the comments and correct us on anything we get wrong. But what has jumped out from the Warhammer news this week, Ben, that has got you excited?
Ooh. So obviously we've got the Space Wolves coming in. That is the I'd say that's the biggest part of news. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but 40K news is usually the kind of the biggest draw,
Yeah.
especially with a Legion that I would say arguably is like one of the most popular ones. You've obviously got Ultramarines, which are the standard. Most people will go for Ultramarines if they're just starting out the hobby because they don't know any better. And they don't know how good the Blood Angels are. But then you've got Blood Angels as well. Bright red, they'd be very common and
Mm.
probably one of the most popular factions. Then we've got like,
Who likes Blood Angels, Ben?
hmm?
Who likes Blood Angels, Ben? Ben likes Blood Angels.
Big fan of Blood Angels.
Surprised you're not sat there with your Blood Angel helmet on, to be honest.
I
But
was gonna say, well, there's Mephisto in there, Sanguinius is
uh,
in the gym, and the helmet's also in the Warhammer room. But yeah, I would say that again, if I'm wrong on this, people can let me know. But I would say that the Space Wolves have been needing an update for a while.
mm,
And they, I would say, would be a fairly popular army. So yeah, they look pretty cool. Now, again, I'll be completely honest. My heart is with AOS at the moment, but I have a feeling that once I get that kit in my hands, I'm gonna appreciate it. That's if I get it. We don't know. We genuinely don't know. We're both on the Warhammer Insider program, but
disclaimer.
yeah, we don't know until we get
Yeah,
any.
we don't know, and we don't know until we know.
No,
Uh,
literally, we have no idea. So we might get it, we might not.
yeah,
But what do you think of the is that
I'm
the
very excited about the Space Wolves, and I'm very excited about the Space Wolves for a couple of reasons. Now, I'm gonna obviously through the wonders of editing, we're gonna have a picture of the Space Wolf I painted on screen at the moment. So there's a video tutorial for this, and these were given out at Adepticon as part of the preview show. So everyone who went to the preview show got one of these. So it's a blood claw. Now, what I really like about the way they've redone the Space Wolves is they've really thought about the progression through the Space Wolf ranks. So when you look at this blood claw, there's not a huge amount of Space Wolf iconography on it. But as you go up to the Grey Hunters, you get a little bit more iconography. And then as you go further up and you look at the Wolf Lord Battle Leader, and he's just an absolutely phenomenal looking model that's just decked out in furs. Um, the Wolfguard head takers as well. I've got an axe and I've got a sword because there's just never enough blades. I just think they're really, really nice. And I'm really looking forward to getting hold of the kit. I mean, you mentioned the Insider program. Even if I don't get it through that, I'll go and buy it because
yeah,
it's a really lovely kit. And the Wolf Priest
I'm
is
just looking at them too.
phenomenal. The bare-headed Wolf Priest with the long beard, it's just brilliant. And the other thing I really like about them is they seem to have lent very much into kind of the Norse aesthetic with the paint jobs that they've done on them. Whereas in the past, and again, so I've been involved in Warhammer for, I'm going to say, the best part of 30 years. And Space Wolves were always space Vikings, essentially, and that's how I always kind of saw them. Rightly or wrongly, that's just what I thought. But
Yeah,
um, they're very much more kind of Norse now, and I know they've kind of gone through the new kits, but I'd be very interested. You can't kind of just, I don't think you can update the battle line troops, the Wolf Guard leader, and then have the head takers without looking at some of the characters. So I'm hoping they're going to do some of the characters. I'm hoping that we may even get Wolf Guard Terminators,
Mhm.
or an upgrade sprue that goes on to the Terminator kit. Because if you look at the Blood Angels, the Dark Angels, they've had really good upgrade sprues
Yeah.
where you've got Terminator shoulder pads, Terminator chest pieces. So it'd be really good to have something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get announced at some point. But yes, sorry, I'm just very excited about about the Space Wolves,
No
and
need to
mainly because
apologize.
I think they are becoming that more. It feels they're more kind of Norse in how they look, and some of the facial tattoos and stuff are really cool. So it'd be fun to try and paint them. So that's my hot take on the Space Wolves.
I mean, I'm looking at the models right now. The being a Blood Angels fan, I have to look at this and just be like, oh, well, that doesn't seem fair. They got a lot. Like, I think there's not many people out there who would say that Games Workshop smashed the Blood Angels release. I don't think so. I mean, most people, including myself, whenever we saw the new Sanguinary Guard,
Mhm.
it was like, oh, okay. Like, that's not quite what I imagined. And then the Sanguinor, again, just fine. Like, not great, but not bad. Whereas I think the resounding feedback from Space Wolf player or potential Space Wolves players has been phenomenal. And this is, I think you're 100% right as well. We're going to see even more. I think there's some verbiage in this article that we're just looking at the Warhammer community article. I think there's something.
It does say more troops will be marching from the frosty halls of Fenris before the Space Wolves are done. That's a saga for another day. So that's good. That's exciting.
Which characters are you most excited about? Is there any that you're like,
I
it's an
would be very
upgrade?
excited to see a new Logan Grimnar. I'm
Hmm.
not sure the sled was really
I was
Space
going to say,
Wolf.
is that the sled one?
Yeah, it's the sled. I get
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be really exciting to see a new Logan Grimnar model. I think Niall Stormcaller
Hmm.
will be phenomenal because the Niall Stormcaller model I think is awesome.
Hmm.
She's a Rune Priest in Terminator armor. I think the model he's got now is brilliant. So to see that reimagined, hopefully in plastic, I think will be awesome. And who's the other? Obviously, the Ragnar Blackmane is already out,
Yep.
so he's already out. And oh, I'm gonna get shot in the comments for this. The Wolf Priest. Who's the Wolf Priest? Ulrich the Slayer, the Wolf Priest. So I think his model is also awesome. I really like that model. So whether or not they choose to redo that, I don't know, but
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be very cool. And I suppose the thing with Ulrich is, could you make a better Ulrich model than the Wolf Priest that they're releasing in this box set? Probably, but I think
It's,
he's got a very stoic model. And I think if you look at AOS, one of the benefits with AOS obviously is that it's a brand new setting or relatively new setting. So from a lore point of view, and from a gameplay point of view, they can change it. And you mentioned Usharan being one of the models you faced at that tournament. And if you look at all the AOS armies, they've all got these kind of big centerpiece models, haven't they? You know,
yeah.
whereas 40k doesn't have that. But I think there's an opportunity for it. When you look at again, other news, you've got Emperor's Children on pre-order this weekend.
Mhm.
Fulgrim, for example. You look at the other Primarchs, they're big centerpiece models for armies. So I just wonder whether Logan Grimnar might have something similar, perhaps for Space Wolves. I don't know. Maybe Leland Russell will come back from the warp.
I mean, that was literally on the tip of my tongue. So I mean, I personally think they'd be silly to not have him come back at the end of this edition. Obviously, we're not going to get him now because we would have seen it by now. There's no way they could hold back a Primarch. Plus, Fulgrim's just come out, so I feel like it's too close together. But I think him coming back at the end of this edition would make a lot of sense.
Mm.
And I'm sure we can do a podcast. In fact, let us know if you'd like us to do a podcast about the Primarchs. We can definitely do that because I have a feeling we've got
Yeah.
plenty of stuff to talk about. Not
Yeah.
me and my Blood Angels, but well,
Bless. Poor Sanguinius. Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to plug my channel and say there are painted tutorials for all the Primarchs, but there's not one for Magnus. So maybe I'll have to do a Magnus tutorial because that would give us four, with Fulgrim coming back now, that will give us four demonic Primarchs against two loyalists. So the scales are a little unbalanced, but potentially that sets up the game system for moving forward into into 11th edition, which, based on how releases are coming, will be next summer 2026, I think.
I think so. It's usually what, 4 years or 3 years?
3 years it is at the moment. Whether that they stretch that out or shorten it down, again, we don't know. But yeah, there's exciting. I say that the whole thing with the Space Wolves are it's around the Armageddon Crusade, isn't it? Which is interesting. And Armageddon has got a lot of history in the lore. It's where Angron keeps turning up
Uh,
and being banished. And if memory serves me, there is a story between the Space Wolves, Grey Knights, and teamed up to defeat Demon Angron. And then the Grey Knights wanted to get rid of any witnesses
yeah,
to it. I think
that's
the
very
Space Wolves
nice.
stopped them. Um,
Right, you're right. Yeah, because Granite.
yeah, I'm pulling out from the depths. But yeah, so it'll be interesting the Armageddon campaign book as well, and what Games Workshop decided to do with that to push the story forward. And I think, as someone who's been in the hobby a long time, it's nice to see the story moving forward
Hmm.
because it stagnated for so long across so many editions for so many years. Obviously, when Indomitus was it? Yes, Indomitus came out with the Primaris Marines. What was that?
Necron.
Ninth edition or eighth edition? Eighth edition. Yeah. So with the Primaris Marines eighth edition, Gulliman came back at the end of seventh and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. It's really nice to see the story progressing. So it'd be interesting to see what else is in store. Um, I struggle from new shiny thing syndrome, like a magpie saying, "Ooh, shiny thing! Ooh, shiny
Oh,
thing!"
oh,
Because all the new stuff, but it doesn't. There's not enough of it gets painted. But I think that's definitely something I need to change in my life. Is like paint more Warhammer. Um, so
yeah.
yeah, so that's the Space Wolves. Obviously, we've got some. There's some other. So we mentioned the Emperor's Children are coming out this weekend on pre-order.
Mhm.
It was the Soulblight Grave Order Battle Force last weekend. Now you did a video on that. Just very briefly, what was the box like? Now it looked like a phenomenal box.
I
Has
I like the box. I again in every video I do, there's always that complaint of it's way too much for this box and blah blah. You don't need to buy it then. Just don't buy it. Like simple. That's a pretty. I mean, I've been tempted to do. As someone else in the comments was like, um, "Why did they send you this for free?" And I was like, just to be clear, they sent it as an exchange of goods. I'm exchanging my services and making a video for them. Now, if you worked it out, I actually am probably paying them money at the
yeah.
point that my channel's at. Like I'm not making a win here, any profits at all. Um, but the box itself, I think, was really good. Again, I mentioned this in the video. If you want to go and check it out, you can go and check it out and see how I
We'll put a
got.
link in the description as well.
Yeah, but I think the cool thing about Soulblight is the fact they've got different, I would say chambers, but different categories within the army. So
Hmm.
I said this in the video. This box is primarily focused on the death rattle, so the skeletons. Now, again, I already had a decent amount of skeletons. I actually collected soul blights. I have 20 of the skeletons. I have 40 of the zombies. I have 30 dire wolves, and I've got like a bunch of other models that I actually really liked. These new ones are more heavily armored, more organized. They're kind of like a
Mhm.
bodyguard troop. And the good thing is I think that a lot of people will get use out of this box, regardless of what way you decide to build your lists. Like whether you want to go more vampiric, whether you want to go
Do
more,
like the vampires.
yeah, because there's a lot of vampire. And then you got
Hmm.
like the strict kind of standard vampires, sanguine blood vampires. Then
Hmm.
you've got like the wolfen aspect, which is where Radikar comes in, which you get the dire wolves.
Cool.
You've got like the body horror vampires, which is like the Vengorian Lord and Luke of Eye. So again, you got so many cool ways of going down the Soulblight list,
Mhm.
what way you want to build them. But I think this is a fantastic box if you're into the skeleton aesthetic. And then the new combat patrol they're releasing looks like it would be a solid addition to that army if you're wanting to go primarily more skeleton. Again, lots of models on the board, but when you've got that, it means you can be a little bit more, how would I say this? A little bit more relaxed in your paint scheme. Like you were saying, like you could spend hundreds of hours on one model. And that's the thing I kind of like about this hobby is like it's entirely up to you how much you're willing to invest and what you're trying to get out of it. Like my goal for that one, get these guys painted up to a standard that if someone picks them up off the board, they're like, that's pretty good. Not like that's incredible, the best model I've ever seen, because I don't have that. That's just not a big priority for me. Now, if I was painting a
Mhm.
single model, definitely. But no, I'm pretty happy with how they painted up and fairly simple paint job. It's fun to do some different colors as well. I did like a tealish green on their shields. It's really popped.
I like teal.
Yeah, it's a lovely color. And it looks like they're getting some more models coming out soon, which look cool. They've got Prince Vordry on his undead dragon.
Oh, that yes,
Shordmare, I think its name is, and that's like a dragon that
yes. Do you know, I remember because I didn't get the soul, I didn't get the box, the Death Rattle box, but I remember when they announced it, they did that. I remember seeing. I think that is. I'm sure there will be a lot of those in Golden Demons in the future. 'Cause that is a great looking model.
stunning looking. Like, I mean, that's the thing. You mentioned this earlier. AOS has from again, this is kind of just like a cherry pick from everyone's kind of perspective. AOS models have been phenomenal in the last couple of years. Like the design team, whoever's in charge of the design team at the AOS specific,
Mm.
they are just knocking them out of the park on every hit. Like they are incredible. Even the standard troops for the Barrow Guard, so the 20 man or 210 man
Yeah,
blocks. The leader of both of those units to me looked amazing. I highlighted one of them in the video. He's just holding this big war mace and just like pointing. It's just a standard model. Like it's one
yeah,
that's taken off the board more times than it's ever going to probably do anything. But it looks incredible. The poses are really natural looking
yeah,
despite being undead. Like it's just, yeah, I think the design team have done such a good job. And I think it's a pretty good time to be a Soulblight player as well
yeah.
because the rules look pretty fun too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big criticisms of all the kind of models come out is that they tend to be monopose or static pose, or you can only build them a certain way, and they might have weapon options or those kinds of things. But actually, I think they are designed in such a way that they look great anyway, on the tabletop. And
Yeah.
I always think about the old Space Marine tactical sprue, where, and I say the old, it's you still get it if you want to get it. And it's the legs are separate from the torsos and the arms and all that stuff, so you can literally pose them as much as you want. You've got so much choice. But I think whereas perhaps we don't get as much choice now these days, the quality of the models is better because they're digitally sculpted, not hand sculpted.
Yeah.
The fit is so much better, but also you get stuff like that where you get these really cool models which inspire you to paint or inspire you to make look even cooler. So, and one thing I'm touching on there as well about people commenting this because I get that on a lot of my videos as well. And one of the reasons I get it is because I use a lot of different paints because I use the Citadel paint system because it's a more successful paint system. Most people can get it, but it does mean that I use a lot of paint colors. And people are like, oh my God, there's so many paints, I can't afford all the paints, all the models and things like this. And I think and somebody, I can't remember who it was who used this as a way of kind of justifying spending money on Warhammer. But if you go to the cinema and you take your partner, you take your kids, if you've got kids and that kind of stuff, you look at how much money you spend for that and how much time you're in the cinema. Maybe let's say 2 hours, 2.5 hours with the trailers.
Yeah.
Then you think about how much time you spend actually engaged in the Warhammer hobby, which is either you're painting or, and this isn't just Warhammer, for example, this is any kind of hobby like this, because even if you build model planes, they're not cheap.
Hmm.
If you look at the amount of time you spend engaged in that hobby, it's a huge amount of time. So actually, whilst it's that kind of bigger outset, the hourly rate, it's like, it's much lower. I always think this, if I buy a pair of trainers that are a little bit too expensive, or I buy a jacket that's quite expensive, I'm going to wear that jacket so that I get value for money out of it.
Well,
So it's
middle
one
of
of those,
summer, this jacket's a
yeah,
real.
it's fine.
Oh, are you okay? I'm
I'm down
fine.
to 10 pence a wear,
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's just one of those things that, I think we're always going to be exposed to that kind of thing. I mean, we are in privileged positions, and we acknowledge that in terms of being part of the influencer program, but also in terms of having our channels. But guys, they are hard work. And I'm not saying, but I suggested this podcast to Ben about 10 years ago, and it's taken that long to pin me down to come on it. So this kind of stuff is hard work, and it's not just a case of setting up and filming. So, and that's not me saying, "Oh, woe is us." We enjoy doing it. That's why we do it. But just something to kind of think about. I always laugh when people complain at seeing free content that they've not paid for, or if there's a sponsored section in a video that you can skip through. You don't have to skip through it, and but yeah, it does make me chuckle.
Yeah,
Probably would have been annoyed in my earlier days, but now it's just kind of it's the game of YouTube, I guess.
exactly. And again, they're always seeing what we want them to see in terms of like the edit. like we can, you hit the nail on the head. In fact, that last video, I hadn't made a video since my Gloomspite box, which was a couple of months ago,
Mm.
simply because I didn't have any boxes to do up for the box to board challenge, and that's the easiest kind of process for me to go through. I say easy, it's not, but I kind of have a formula to that. Whereas making
Yeah.
different type of videos, like this tournament one I'm going to make, it's very hard to get myself into that mindset of, right, what shots do I need? How am I going to frame this? Is the lighting good? What's the sound like? Do I need to charge the microphones? Like, there's so many things that go into making these videos. And as you said, this is not like, woe is me. I thoroughly enjoy the process, but that does not mean the process is easy, like at all. So whenever someone complains and says, "Oh, yeah, it's easy for you get them for free," I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." I would, in some cases, much prefer to just go out and pay for the thing and not have any obligations to make something about it. But that's not the situation I'm in. I'm in such a nice situation where every time I get sent a box from Games Workshop, my inner child just like, "Oh my word, you did it! This is amazing! This is
It's
amazing!"
Christmas at least once a month, isn't it?
Exactly,
Which is
exactly.
brilliant.
And even going back to it, the amount of money I've spent on Warhammer, I'm going to need to be on this insider program for at least another decade or two to even break it.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
you've been on the Insider program longer than I have.
mm,
I'm probably coming up to a year and a half, and my channel is 6 years old. So for 4.5 years, like I was out there buying all the Warhammer to paint it. And I remember queuing outside when Angron came out, queuing outside Games Workshop in Swansea because I'm in South Wales. Um, big big shout out to Luke there. And there were three of us in the queue. Well, there were about 10 of us in the queue by the end, but he only had two Angrons. And I was the second in the queue, so I was like, whew. But luckily, the guy in front of me didn't want an Angron. I wanted an Angron. The guy behind me wanted an Angron. But that meant there was seven people as well who didn't get an Angron.
hmm
Um, Obviously, supply issues at the time and things like that sorted. But do you know what I mean? It's kind of that. That's the stuff, like you said, that's the stuff people don't necessarily see. So
no,
um, it's nice to share some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on.
yeah,
Um,
and I think, I mean, for me, hearing you saying that, it encourages me because I see where you're at with your channel and how long you've been doing it and how consistent you've been and how good you are at that stuff. And then, for example, if I was someone watching this who's like, I want to make a YouTube video, I want to do this, I think it's nice to hear the people that, I looked up to your channel. I still do, obviously, but I've used so many of your videos in the past. It's nice to be like, oh, they're an actual person. That makes it feel like this is
mm,
achievable. Yes, it's achievable, but just be aware that it's going to take a lot of hard work. So I think that's probably why we'd get a little bit like a bit triggered towards comments like us because you're just like, hey, come on now.
yeah, I would say the internet is not a safe place. But I would also say to anyone who's thinking of starting a YouTube channel, start a YouTube channel. You do not need
No.
fancy equipment. And I've said this, and you know this, Ben, but I'll hold it up there
Yeah.
for you to see it. This is what I use to film all my YouTube videos. I use my phone.
hmm
And, 6 years worth of videos, 200 or getting close to 300 video tutorials, 112,000 subs almost. It's a slow grow, but it's all done on my phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I use a PC for editing and stuff, but there's no fancy camera work. And I probably don't want fancy camera work because I would take me forever to figure out how to work it. So,
I mean, that's someone asked me like, how do I edit? And I was like, iMovie.
hmm,
They're like, oh, but there's so many better ones out there. And I'm like, it works exactly how I want it to work.
yeah,
It does everything I need to do. Yeah, sometimes I need to get a little bit creative with how I do things. But if anything, that's like another little thing for me. Like, oh, this is the problem I had. I solved it by doing this method instead of trying to learn an entire new editing software. So yeah,
yeah.
I mean, what Lloyd said there's 100% right. You don't need to get fancy with it. The best thing you can do is just start. And I wish I had started sooner, but at the same time, I'm really happy with where I'm at the moment, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So on to the next segment, hobby updates, and I'm sure we can make
Hobby
it go.
updates. Before you hobby updates, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Based on what we were just talking about,
Mhm.
how do you find being a YouTuber affect your hobby?
You just call me a YouTuber. There we go. Mom, I did. Oh, it's just not here. Um,
He's made it. He's made it.
I've done it. I can write to my mum. It's affected me in a positive way because it's actually encouraged me to paint more and get more into the hobby because I think when you're in this hobby, it's such a everyone has different depths of Warhammer experience as well.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I am I've always put myself as like a hobbyer rather than a painter or a gamer or anything like that because I enjoy pretty much every aspect. I love the lore. I love the even the like not the scenery setting. What's that? Diorama type stuff.
Dioramas, yeah.
I love all of that stuff. So I think for me, it's encouraged me to just further my learning in other things like the game. So, for example, I started the channel off initially with the idea of going to tournaments, becoming like the best tournament player in the world. Ambitious. Um, which then I realized, nah, I actually don't really like the competitive style of gaming. I think I just like the more casual side of it. I like making lists and I like thinking how those lists are going to work, and
Mm.
that makes me paint models. So I think it's had a positive effect on me because it gives me reasons to do stuff. Like it gives me a reason to paint up that Soulblight. It gives me a reason to. It just opens up so many doors in terms of my creativity and thoughts, which I absolutely love. What about you? Do you think it's affected you? How do you think it's?
Probably negatively from a point of view, not negative is the wrong word, but I probably don't do as much as I want to do. I don't build out as much as I want to do. So I obviously, if you've watched our channels, you'll know that we had the New Year, New Army challenge last year, which you very easily succeeded at, it feels like, and I'm still trying to get done. So I think it's just the having the time to do the things for the video. And one thing I've also felt is I feel like when I first started, I was able to get stuff done really quickly. And
Mhm.
now I feel like it's taking me a lot longer to get stuff done, which is very strange. I'm not sure why. I'm trying to, is the quality better? Is the quality not better? It probably is better, but it's one of those things. So yeah, for me, when it comes to hobby, it's about carving out deliberate time to spend doing stuff that I want to do. So I've got lots of Death Cove Creek built, just not painted. And same for some of the new Eldar stuff as well, which I'm a big fan of. So hopefully get an opportunity to paint some of that up. So yeah, I guess it probably don't do as much as I want to do. Is the answer to that question. And in terms of what I've been working on, it's purely just been building stuff. Now, obviously, there are videos coming out in weeks' time, which I cannot discuss at this time, um, which I've also been working on, which I've enjoyed. But also, but really, for my personal hobby, there's not been a huge amount to report. What about you?
By the way, I completely get that as well. It's an aspect of it that it definitely has an effect on what you are leaning towards. Like, for example, when I got that Krieg, Deathcore of Krieg box set, I, again, as I've said to you, I'm very much in AOS at the moment. I'm really thoroughly appreciating that. And from what it seems like, I kind of do like a yearly appreciation. Like 2 years ago, it was 40K, big time. Now it's AOS. It's probably going to change to 40K next year and go back, which is kind of a nice thing. I've
I think
got
at this point, it's important to say it's okay to like different things as well.
yeah, 100%. And I think yeah, you definitely like when I was painting the Krieg, I was like, "Ah, I don't really want to be painting these because I know I'm not going to use them, and I know that even if I did use them, it's going to be a while because I'm not going to play any 40K games. So
Hmm.
for me, what I've done, and I did this in this current video as well. I was sitting painting the last remaining 10 of the 20 Barrow Guards, but I had my Storm Fiends that I bought for my birthday. I had them just sitting, staring at me, and I was like, I want to build them. So
Yeah,
instead of forcing myself to paint up models that I was like middle of the road about, which my enthusiasm definitely got greater as I continued along the project, which tends to happen. But I just sat and built my Storm Fiends instead. So I've just finished up painting my Storm Vermin with Kritok Farblade. In fact, he's right.
hmm.
He's
The
right.
one you prepared earlier.
Yep, that's the
Oh,
one.
nice, nice. That's nice, man.
Thank you very much. So I've got him ready with his unit of 10 man Storm Vermin. And then next up, I've actually got it set up on the table. I've got the Storm Fiends to prime up, and that's what I've got on my hobby board, and I'll probably post a couple of photos of that on my Instagram as well.
Nice. Links to all will be in the description of the video.
Mhm.
Let us know, what are you working on hobby-wise at the moment? What are you excited about? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to kind of know what kind of armies you're building, and what painting projects you've got on at the moment, if you've got any, or if you're just getting something ready for a tournament or just doing it as something that's a bit of fun. Let us know down in the comments. So yeah, and I guess this podcast is also a really good way of keeping each other accountable. for our actual hobby.
I was going to say, yeah, yeah.
And all of you viewers as well can keep us accountable for our hobby. So when we're doing the next episode and reporting back, saying what have you done? I've just built some more Krieg, not painted anything. It's
Yeah, these are all. I painted all of my storm fiends. Here they are painted, and I'll just quickly flash them up. And then
yeah.
I got base levels. I got base layers
Yeah,
done.
I've done an army of Tau stealth suits. You can't see it,
Stealth
but
suits. They're all stealth suits. Um, Excellent. So onto that, and you kind of have kind of nicely pointed that out. So we obviously want to make this as interactive as possible with you guys. So as Lloyd said, in the comments, drop some questions that we could then pull up for the next episode because this is the segment that we would usually have, which is listener questions or community spotlight as well. So any questions you have, whether it's to myself, Lloyd, or just the podcast in general, let us know, and we will answer your questions in this section
yeah,
next week because it's the first episode. We obviously don't have any.
yeah.
So
And let us know what you want to hear about as well, and what
yeah.
kind of Warhammer topics you want us to discuss. We're hoping to get guests on, so we can get guests who know a hell of a lot more about things than we might know.
Mm.
That'll be really exciting. We're also hoping to have kind of like a central topic for each episode as well, where we'll discuss it from a hobbyist point of view that we'd like you to weigh in on as well. So anything you'd like to hear us chat about or anything you feel really strongly about, let us know down in the comments. We'll pick those out and we'll put them into the idea pile that we've already kind of got ruminating in our brains so that we can make this a nice, wholesome, community-focused podcast. I think is probably the aim. Like I said, we're not experts, we're just fans. And I know the internet is not necessarily a safe space, but this certainly is. So please come and take part in it.
We'll protect you. We'll protect you. We got you.
Ben will, he's much tougher than I am.
You got me in the size. You can be the door. I can just be the bouncer. Perfect.
We've all seen the photos of you dressed like Thor.
Well, more people will have now that you said that.
Thor wears Ben Mudge pajamas when he goes to sleep.
On it. So a wrap up of this episode. So
Yes.
as I said, this was our first episode. We're going to get better from here, just like we said earlier. Our first video, first podcast. We're going to see progressions, hopefully. And again, a big shout out to anyone who has listened to this, watched this all the way through. My goal is to have something you can stick on whilst you're painting, whilst you're building, whilst you're doing any hobbying at all. So hopefully we've filled your ears of interesting stuff whilst you paint and build and do whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Feedback is a gift and should be given often. So please let us know in the comments if you've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If you like it, leave a comment, that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll be back very soon for the second episode of Hobby Hammer.